Sunrise and streaming on crossroadstoday.com. Several shots were fired at an apartment complex. The cause of the altercation just ahead. And Congress is set to meet for the first time this year. What's first on their agenda coming up? Plus, Jackson County welcomes a new sheriff.
And we've got some beautiful weather in store for us for the weekend time before everything drastically changes next week in the form of a cold front. Sunday night, will we see snow? That is the big question. We'll talk about all that in the weather coming up.
And Industrial and Calhoun volleyball teams have multiple players honored and playing in the first ever 361 All-Star game. I'll tell you more in sports.
You're watching 25 News Now Sunrise. Good morning. I am Amaya Norman filling in for Carolina Estron.
That's right, and I'm Parker Cox. Today is the third day of the brand new year 2025,
And
Friday. It's the best day of the week, isn't it, Amaya?
And
you know why we're excited for it? Because we get to go home and sleep. However, I don't advise y'all to be sleeping away the weekend because it's going to be beautiful out there. We're going to be looking for highs in the beautiful 70s, clouds clearing up. We're going to look at all that later on sunrise because first things first, we're dealing with a little bit of fog out there this morning. You can see some of that here on the Victoria camera. This camera is looking southeast at Lone Tree Road and Houston Highway. You can see that right there with some of the cars on your screen. But a little bit of fog out there. That's right. Why that is because right now it's 60 flat here in Victoria and your dew point is 2 degrees off. A little bit of a light northerly wind providing us some of that calming motion out there for the fog. Humidity is at 93% with that dew point 2 degrees off. And this computer right here says a 1 mile visibility out at the airport. But looking at the fog map, this one's saying a half mile. So with that being said, there's likely that you're going to see some denser fog in some local areas of the crossroads. So please be careful on the roads this morning. You can see we have some special weather statements issued until 9 a.m. when the fog starts clearing. And the fog is actually not even going to be really clearing. The fog that's on the ground is clouds on the ground. Going to be moving up into the sky all the way to cloud cover like we've had yesterday. We're going to look at all that later on sunrise because later on sunrise we're going to be looking at the cold air that's coming out of Canada. All that coming up later.
An altercation between relatives turned into a shootout at Victoria apartment complex. Around 5 p.m. Thursday afternoon, police rushed to the 1400 block of Nevada Street. Officers quickly roped off the area to investigate and found several bullet holes in the home. Officers found shell castings in front of the apartment and broken glass, possibly from a car window. The woman who lived there says the shooting started over a supposed theft between her two nephews. She said a car pulled up, someone started firing, and she was forced to the ground as the shots were fired back.
My nephew pushed me to the ground, told my husband to get down on the ground, and then he came out, you know, they just started shooting. I ain't never been through nothing like this, nothing. And it was so scary, just like I said, my nephew threw me to the ground. You know, it just happened so fast.
Police says no one was hit by any bullets and no word on how many people were involved. The FBI is continuing to investigate the attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. At least 15 people are dead and over 30 people were hurt as a result of the January 1st attack. The suspect is identified as 42-year-old Shamsun Din Jabbar, a U.S. citizen from Texas. Video appears to show a truck matching the description turning off Canal onto Bourbon Street. FBI special agent and our law enforcement partners are conducting search warrants in New Orleans and other states, as well as processing the crime scene to gather all relevant evidence. The new Congress meets today in Washington, D.C., and House Speaker Mike Johnson, faces a crucial vote. It will determine if he'll hold onto his leadership role, and it's unclear if he has enough support, even after President-elect Trump endorsement.
Johnson sounding confident that he has the support to win re-election as House Speaker, despite Republicans' razor-thin margin.
We're ready. Look, I think we're going to get this done.
But his caucus isn't as sure.
As of right now, if we don't have concrete commitment from Speaker Johnson, I am not going to be supporting him tomorrow, but I'm open-minded.
With the vote scheduled for later today, Johnson is holding individual meetings with lawmakers, making his case not once but twice on Fox News. Some Republican colleagues are still furious over the spending bill Johnson recently pushed through. He can only afford to lose one Republican vote, and Tom Massey of Kentucky is already a firm no. ABC News counts at least 17 others who are undecided.
You have a lot like me who said that we're not there yet.
Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina belongs to the Arch Conservative Freedom Caucus, which met with Johnson.
What are your sticking points right now with Johnson?
The same things as always been. Spending. The border. The border, when Speaker Johnson took over, was going to be the linchpin, and it didn't happen. But it's a new day. Trump's behind him. It does make a lot of difference.
President-elect Trump has endorsed Johnson. Without a speaker in place, business in the Capitol will grind to a halt, just as he's poised to take office.
He's the one that can win right now. People like him. Almost everybody likes him.
ABC News' Jay O'Brien asked the speaker what he's telling the holdouts.
What's your message to the undecideds, Mr. Speaker?
That we need to stay unified so we can save the country, and I think that's an important message.
Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
If Johnson doesn't receive the required votes and there is a battle for the gavel, it could delay the certification of presidential election results on January 6. And that leads us to your viewer poll. You can scan the QR code right there on your screen to take part. We want to know, do you think Speaker Johnson will be reelected? And so far in the lead at 67% is yes, and no is at 33%. And we still want to hear from you. To participate, come to our website at crossroadstoday.com/vote to participate in our viewer poll. Jackson County is another county in the crossroads with a new sheriff. On Thursday morning, Rick Boone was sworn in as Jackson County Sheriff. Boone was sworn in during a commissioner court meeting. He succeeds Kelly Janeka, who did not run for re-election. Janeka first hired Boone when he was 19. Boone has served in law enforcement ever since and has held several positions within the sheriff department. Boone was heavily involved in fighting the reported killer of Edna High School cheerleader Lisbeth Medina after she was found stabbed to death in December of 2023. And a longtime resident of Edna now serves as their new police chief. Kenneth Powell, a senior detective from the Port Lavaca Police Department, was sworn in as Edna new police chief this Thursday morning. Powell succeeds Boone. Powell brings over 2 decades of law enforcement experience to the position. He has lived in Edna with his family for more than 20 years. And remember to follow us on YouTube Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell. The time is now 6:37 on your Friday morning. Here's a look at what's coming up next on 25 News Now Sunrise. It's a new year and some families welcome new life here in the Crossroads.
New barricades are up along Bourbon Street, which has reopened to foot traffic. I'm Christiane Cordero with the latest from New Orleans.
And also coming up next after the break, in the full forecast today and the weekend, looking pretty nice all across Texas, actually. I'll tell you just how nice I think it's going to be near you coming up next. But later on Sunrise, we got to talk about how cold it's going to get next week. Just how cold? All that coming up later. Well, good morning, Crossroads. You're looking live in Cuero. You can see just how cloudy it is on the Cuero camera this morning. A big old cloud deck over our heads. And that will stick with us all the way into tomorrow morning when we're going to start seeing a slight decrease in clouds down to partly cloudy skies. for your nice Saturday day tomorrow. But right now, before all that happens, it's 57 in Cuero, a tad bit chilly out there, just a tad. I might maybe recommend a light jacket. Dew point 1 degree off at 56 is bringing us some high humidity this morning of 94% right now in Cuero. This computer says it's bringing you a 4-mile visibility, but looking back at that camera, I think it's a little bit better than that. But if you do see some of that thicker fog, just please be careful on the roads this morning. Make sure you have a safe driving distance between you and the car in front of you, and use those windshield wipers and use your low beam headlights. Don't use the brights. But the fog, if you see any out there this morning, that's going to clear at around 9 a.m. Not really going to clear up because it's going to clear up to cloudy skies. In fact, that's exactly what fog is. Fog is just clouds on the ground. So really what's going to happen is all the clouds are going to move up like that into the sky, and we're going to have another cloudy day. Just like yesterday, you can see that really well here on the future clouds and radar. Here's noontime, and going into the afternoon time, we may see, kind of also like yesterday, maybe see a couple areas of drizzle, although I do not think there's going to be any rain today, like showers. You might see a couple areas of drizzle for today before all that kind of dies back down to the mostly cloudy skies for this evening. And then underneath the cloud cover today, it's going to be pretty nice even, I believe. I'm thinking the upper 60s and low 70s for all today. And also more good news, looking pretty green and on the Weather and Health Department, except for tree pollen. That's going to be moderate for cedar. So if you have that allergy, I might maybe take an allergy pill for today. But for the weekend, we're looking beautiful before that strong front gets here Sunday night, and we're looking at that in those alert days coming up next.
Now, yesterday we had some big crossroad volleyball news with Industrial volleyball team winning multiple awards here this offseason. First, with the first team honors going to Desiree Evans, Kate Simons, and then Kaylee Honk. And then the second team district went to Desiree Alanis and then Pacey Rowe. And then the entire team, props up to them. They got academic all district. And then 3 of their players for Industrial will play here in the first ever 361 All-Star game. It's going to be held there this Sunday at Hallettsville High School. Again, Desiree Evans there, Kate Simons, and Pacey Rowe, names that I mentioned, will all be competing there for Industrial, and their head coach Tara Dunn is also going to coach in that game as well. So a lot of representation there for the Industrial Cobras. But also Calhoun volleyball has 2 players selected to that same All-Star game here as well here on Sunday too. So senior captains Neva Rangel and Kendall Vargas are the ones selected for the Sand Crabs. This past season, Rangel led the Sand Crabs on the offensive side there with kills, and then Kendall Vargas led the team in digs this past season. So congrats there to the Sand Crabs volleyball players, and also props up to Mackenzie Judd, Bradley Christensen, and Addison Rodriguez, and Kendall Vargas again for getting TGCA Academic All-State there as well for those players. This is Max Williams, 25 News Now Sports.
Experience our digital streaming service Crossroads Today Plus. Stream our daily newscasts and much more using your connected TV. Just download Crossroads Today Plus on your Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or Android TV. Search Crossroads Today Plus. The Sugar Bowl brought crowds back to New Orleans just 36 hours after the horrific attack along Bourbon Street. Officials reopened the area to foot traffic, but the investigation into how a driver was able to plow into a New Year's Day crowd and why is far from over.
This morning, Bourbon Street is back open with security reinforcements and a new warning that stretches nationwide. The FBI and Department of Homeland Security have alerted every U.S. law enforcement agency of the potential for copycats trying to mimic the New Year's Day attack that killed 14 in New Orleans. As part of this investigation, officials are trying to figure out how the suspect, U.S.-born Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar, became an ISIS sympathizer.
What I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS.
Authorities now believe Jabbar acted alone in the Bourbon Street attack, planting explosives and ramming a rented pickup truck into a crowd. But they're unsure if he was radicalized online, on his own, or recruited. New video shows the moment people began running for their lives after the driver turned onto Bourbon Street. Dozens are still recovering with injuries. Among those killed, 18-year-old Kareem Badawi, a freshman at the University of Alabama.
Fun-loving guy. Never looked for the center of attention. He was always there, though, just because he was a positive guy and well-liked.
And 26-year-old Drew Dauphin celebrating the new year with his younger brother, Matthew.
Everybody that knows Drew and knows Matthew, they were one. They were best friends. Drew lived in Birmingham, but he would go to the lake every weekend to be with his brother.
36 hours after the tragedy, the Sugar Bowl kicked off with a moment of silence for the victims as new flowers, candles, and crosses dot the French Quarter.
In response to the FBI determining Jabbar was inspired by ISIS, the Houston chapter for the Council of American Islamic Relations unequivocally denounced this crime and joined the New Orleans community in mourning the victims. One of those killed, Kareem Badawi, was a Muslim American from Baton Rouge. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, New Orleans.
The first baby of Gen Beta in Victoria is a healthy baby boy named Kendrick. He was born at Detar Hospital North at 3:32 a.m. on January 1st, weighing 7 pounds even and measuring 20 inches long. His proud parents, Jamie and Isaac, are both from Victoria. Both mom and baby are doing well as they begin their new journey together. President Biden awarded the nation's second highest civilian honor, the Presidential Citizens Medal. During a ceremony at the White House on Thursday evening, the medal, second only to the Medal of Freedom, recognizes U.S. citizens who have demonstrated exemplary services to the country and their fellow Americans. Among the 20 honorees were former Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming and Congressman Benny Thompson of Mississippi. Both key members of the House of January 6th committee received loud cheers and standing ovations as they took the stage. The time is now 6:48, still to come on Sunrise. An appeals court ended a long-standing fight by the FCC yesterday. We'll tell you what's changing with that decision just ahead.
Well, good morning, Crossroads. I'm sure a lot of y'all are wondering just how cold is it going to get next week, and I'm sure you're especially wondering, are we going to see any snow next week? Well, probably not looking the greatest likely, but we're going to look at all it here in a second. But we've got to start out with the big picture first before we get all the details. You can see going looking a little closer to the northeastern coast, we still have that one system spinning counterclockwise. There's a low over the northeastern coast. We're going to look at why that's important here in a second. We also have another system that's coming off the eastern Pacific right about there, just west of Oregon and Washington State. And also, if we look up north over Canada, we still have another system that's kind of weakly spinning counterclockwise. But all of this right here is all very, very cold air. We're talking negative 20 to negative 30 degrees. All of that just came out of the Arctic Circle with that polar vortex, which is bobbing around back and forth on the North Pole. But why those two systems on both the east and the west coast are both important is because the winds on the back side of each of those lows are out of the north. You can see the low on the eastern coast is going to drag more of that cold air out of Canada, a little bit further south into the northern states of the United States, but the low that's coming out of the Pacific will reinforce all that northerly wind, and it's going to send it even further south. Look at it as it drags all that cold air even further south, all the way down into deep South Texas. But this is the GFS American computer model, what you're seeing here on your screen, and this computer model thinks that the backside of this jet stream is going to split, and we're going to look at another system that will be moving real far south into the Rockies. And what that would technically mean for us is that we're going to be looking at some chilly conditions for a prolonged period of time. We're talking like a week, week and a half, maybe even up to 2 weeks. But for snow, it has to be freezing all the way from the ground all the way up about 3, 4, 5 miles high. And at the moment, the freezing line doesn't look like it's going to fully pass through all of our counties. So what we're looking at is probably going to be a bit of a rainy day. There might be some real weak mixed winter precip in there, but we're not looking at a good chance for snow. But we do have alert days because it's going to get cold, and that's going to be for our northern counties for sub-freezing temperatures for the nights, 27 to 32 degrees. So I would recommend wrapping your pipes if you're in those counties. But we'll look at all that and more later on Sunrise.
2 people are dead after a small plane crash near a Southern California airport. Smoke poured from the scene after the aircraft hit a building. Now federal investigators are trying to figure out exactly what led to the death of the pilot and his 16-year-old daughter. We want to warn you, some of the videos may be disturbing.
This was the terrifying moment a plane slammed into the roof of a California factory.
Immediate landing required.
Authorities say the small plane seen here moments before the crash had taken off from Fullerton Airport just 2 minutes earlier and was coming back for an emergency landing.
Immediately presumed there was an emergency. Yes, confirmed that they could immediately land any runway. The tower clearly knew there was a problem.
We've just been notified there was an airplane incident at your airfield. Thank you. Shutting down the airport.
Before the pilot could reach the runway, the plane barreled into the furniture factory a few blocks from the airport, exploding into a massive fireball and sending a deadly cascade of fire and debris into the building. One victim seen on camera running with their clothes on fire.
A big fire at the top of the ceiling, fireball, and then it was black smoke. We didn't know then. Our boss was shouting at us, everybody back there.
At least 2 people were killed in the crash, while more than a dozen others were injured. Factory workers saying they've worried about something like this happening before.
Every day, there's a plane going down here. And I said, oh, one day it's going to fall down in our roof. And I think today's the day.
In fact, another small plane went down across the street just a few months ago. That crash was caught on the same camera. The pilot and their passenger survived that crash. This morning, federal investigators are trying to unravel what went wrong in Thursday's crash. Officials say the plane, a homemade single-engine aircraft, could seat 4, but authorities have not said how many people were on board.
It's a pretty popular kit-built airplane, but it's a pretty standard airplane, and it's been flying for a long time. Once it's been built, it's then inspected by either an FAA inspector or someone who's designated to work on behalf of the FAA. And then it's approved for flying.
Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
A federal appeal court killed net neutrality Thursday. It's the end of a fight that has spanned nearly 2 decades. Net neutrality is a term that forbids internet providers from giving preferentiality bandwidth to certain providers. Without it, broadband internet providers can purposely slow down content they may view as a competition, like video streaming. Conversely, they can also charge companies a fee in exchange for more bandwidth. but a 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 6th Circuit in Cincinnati ruled the FCC does not have such authority. Still to come on Sunrise News to know before you go. We could soon learn the fate of U.S. Steel. More just after the break. The U.S. Surgeon General has issued new advisory on the link between alcohol and cancer risk. Alcohol consumption is the 3rd leading preventable cause of cancer in the U.S. after tobacco and obesity, which increases the risk for 7 cancers. While scientific evidence for this connection has been growing over the past 4 decades, less than half of Americans recognize it as a risk factor for cancer. The Surgeon General advisory includes a series of recommendations to increase awareness to help minimize alcohol-related cancer cases and death, including updating the existing Surgeon General's health warning label on alcohol-containing beverages. President Joe Biden could announce a plan to block a Japanese firm bid to take over U.S. Steel as soon as today. The president was cleared to make a decision on the matter after a federal committee reviewing the transaction did not make a formal recommendation about whether the takeover should be allowed. Japan's Nippon Steel has said it will to protect and grow U.S. Steel by investing nearly $3 billion into its ununionized facilities. The company said it would take legal actions if the deal was blocked. President-elect Donald Trump posted on social media that he will also block the deal. Singer Wayne Osmond has died. He was best known as a member of the music group The Osmonds, which also featured younger brother Donny Osmond, and the Osmond became well known as regular musical guests on the Andy Williams Show in the early and mid-1960s. Then in the 1970s, they produced a string of hit singles on top of charts. No cause of death has been provided for Wayne Osmond. His brother Merrill wrote a Facebook that he had suffered a massive stroke before he died. Wayne Osmond was 73 years old. A recent uptick in home sales may not last. U.S. mortgage rates are nearing 7%. The average 30-year fixed rate loans now rising to 6.9% just last week. That's a 6-month high. And despite the Federal Reserve 3 interest rates cuts this year, the rising rates are fueled by the resilient economy, and investors fear President-elect Trump policies could reawaken inflation. And we want to invite you to experience our digital streaming service Crossroads Today Plus. Find it on your connected TV through Amazon, Fire TV, Roku, Apple TV, and Android TV. Just search Crossroads Today Plus. Now let's take a final look at your weather with meteorologist Parker Cox. Parker.
Thanks, Amaya. Good morning, Crossroads. If you're tuning in with us this morning, you can see over the coast of Port Lavaca, it looks pretty messy out there. It's not that bad, I promise you. It just looks a little bit foggy out there and also super cloudy. And there is the sun behind those clouds, but that's not going to come out until tomorrow afternoon when the clouds start clearing up a little bit. But right now it's 61 degrees in Port Lavaca, just a tiny tad bit cool out there. Dew point matching that temperature of 61 is bringing us that high humidity of 100%, which is guaranteeing us to see a little bit of fog. So please be careful if you're on the roads this morning. But today we're expecting a beautiful day, and the same thing for the rest of this weekend and the rest of beautiful Texas. Today looking at highs in the 60s and 70s, but looking a little closer to home, I'm thinking the high of 69 today in Port Lavaca under the deep cloud cover. Super cloudy on the coast today. In Victoria and in the inland counties, we're looking for a high of 70 today in Victoria, already in the mid-upper 60s at noontime. But in the afternoon, we could maybe pick up a slight break in the cloud cover in the afternoon time. Same thing in Cuero. But we're looking for high 69 for today. And if you like that, like I said, we're looking for a beautiful weekend with highs in the 70s and even 80 for Sunday before that strong Arctic front gets here Sunday night. And we've got alert days for Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, maybe even Thursday night for the near or below freezing conditions. And that's going to be for our northern counties, by the way.
Wow. Well, make sure you guys stay safe through Monday and Wednesday.
That's right. And also cover your pipes.
And also cover your pipes. But I hope you guys have a great weekend and also catch up on rest if you need to. Thank you for being with us this morning. Join Shauna and Dawn, Maclovia and Max today for 25 News, 5, 6, and 10. Have a good day.